Okay. So as y'all introduce yourselves to get to know each other better, since it is President's Day, I'm curious if you could have dinner with one president, which would it be? And would you travel back to their time or bring them to the current time to have a meal with you? So y'all know me already. Pronouns she, her. I'm based in Miami, Florida. And if I could have dinner with one president, um, I feel like I would want to have either a meal. Oh God, I can't choose now. Probably with Jimmy Carter, like in his heyday. So I would go back to like when he was actually a sitting president and have a meal with him because I just want to understand like how you become that person in your life, like in the best way possible. I just feel like he's a really like service leader oriented type of person, and like there's not that many of them in politics. So I just like want to understand that more. And yeah, I'll popcorn it to Emmett, who is grinning, which makes me think he has a really great idea. Like he's thought about this question many a time in his life.
I actually have not thought about this question. My name is Emmett Tim. I'm based at UNH. My pronouns are he, him. And if I were to sit down with a president and have a talk over dinner, I think I would choose, actually, I probably would choose Al Gore, even though he was vice president.
We'll let it count. Are you gonna go back to like early 2000s or like late 90s, or are you gonna have him come meet you here?
I don't think it matters.
They're all the same. It's the
Yeah,
same Al Gore.
yeah, he's the climate man,
Totally valid.
so yeah. I even have the official Al Gore pen with his signature right there.
Wait,
Also the vice president.
how do you have this? I feel like there are more stories. This one story unlocked a lifetime of stories of it, and I need to know more.
Actually, I have two of them, and I have the matching pencil that goes with them.
Wait, what? You're definitely gonna have to explain this.
There's the pencil right there, and there's the pen.
That's super cool.
I got a popcorn to Noel.
I know, I want to know more too. Hi everyone, I'm Noelle, and I'm a senior at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. And I mentioned last semester I was involved in research. This semester, I'm obviously going to be starting a chapter on campus, so kind of in the registration process right now. And I feel like it's not an answer everyone would agree with, but I'm just an Obama fangirl. So I would have dinner with Obama and I would go back to 2008 and I would buy a house and I'd be rich now. And I'll popcorn it to Gabriella.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby. I am a junior at University of Michigan, where I'm the co-pres of the CCL chapter here. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a public policy major. And I was also gonna say Obama because I think that'd be so fun. And I was also gonna say like 2008. I feel like that was such an interesting time, and like I would love to talk to him in that period of time. Um, I'll popcorn it to Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior at the College of William and Mary, and I would want to have dinner with Donald Trump, and I would want to convince him of the CFD, and I would want him to endorse it. And then we could just get it ASAP because all the Republicans would be like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'll popcorn it to Stanley.
Yeah, my name is Stanley. I use he, him pronouns. I'm currently working for a year at Babson College in Massachusetts. Um, since Edmund's already set the precedent of slightly breaking the rules, the president I would choose to have dinner with would be Philip Ignatoff. and I would travel to like 2032 so that I could see what that's like.
Fully broke every rule. They're like, I'm gonna travel to the future. That's great. Totally valid. I would also have dinner with Philip. That's fair. Thank you all for sharing that. That was a lot of fun. And I loved like how everybody's mind was calculating different strategies in those conversations. That's awesome. Yeah, so today I wanted to we're gonna like recap a little bit of what's happened over the course of the last month, as we always do. Primarily because there was some stuff in the monthly call that I think was like super useful. But not everybody may have joined that live, which totally makes sense. It's a Saturday in the middle of the day. But yeah, so last higher ed call, the last heat call, which was 2 weeks ago. We spent a lot of time in breakout rooms. That was also kind of a fun adventure. Getting into breakout rooms, we learned a lot from that. I can't promise we're ever going to do that again in that way. I will promise that if we do breakout rooms again, though, we'll do it better because that was not great. But there were 2 breakout rooms, one that was like on organizing actions on campus, which was much more like tailored to like CCL campus leaders, and then another breakout room, which was on CFD. So I don't know if folks, I think I might have been the only one who was in the campus action one. So I'll just share like the big takeaways from that. Like people across the board are just struggling to like recruit people and keep them engaged. So we were in those breakout rooms. We also talked about like some different strategies and actions we wanted to take. And one of the things that came out of that one was trying to like set up a tabling event sometime in, over the course of the next month, like before our next heat call, and to bring a buddy to the next heat call. So you also have like something to invite somebody to. So that was what our room talked about. And I think Emily, Emmett, and Stanley, you were probably all in the CFD room. So I don't know if y'all want to share anything that you all took away from that conversation.
I think for our breakout room, we were mostly just introducing a lot of the heat like student leaders to kind of what we're doing and kind of like our theory of action to help them just kind of like know more about us, because I think a lot of them hadn't really gotten involved with us yet.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of new folks on that call, which is exciting, but also kind of hard to like manage in a small conversation. Um, yeah, so thank you both. Thank you for recapping a little bit of what happened in there. Some other reminders, since this is our campus leader call, I wanted to just remind people, this is probably only really relevant to you, Gabby, but just making sure that all of your members, if you've been a CCL chapter for 2 semesters, or you have a like fully built out leadership team, you're on CCL community now. But unfortunately, what that means is if your members are still registered with their home chapters, your chapter isn't getting any of the credit for all the hard work that you're doing. So just making sure that people are manually updating their chapter affiliation. There's like a whole instructional tutorial in the link in the agenda there. And also making sure you're logging your activities in the action tracker. And that goes for all of you. I feel like we often forget, like we're so busy doing the thing that we forget to actually log it in the action tracker. But again, that's like super important for CCL to be able to go and like talk to funders and say like, hey, we like generated this impact. Like we can only say that when you tell us the impact you're generating. So and yes, it is important to do action tracking for end of semester awards, Stanley. Good call out. I was just gonna get there and say we are really trying to get some funding for a campus leader award for the June conference. So if you want to be in the running for that, make sure that you are tracking your actions, and every little bit counts. So yeah, please do that.
Even if I'm not officially a heat campus leader.
Yeah, just any CC that like this is just my advice to anybody who's engaging with CCL, period, in any way, shape, or form. Like if you did a thing for CCL, put it in the action tracker. If you use one of CCL's like widgets, like if you write Congress, that's automatically getting tracked, so you don't need to log that. I also put all of these calls into the action tracker. So like I'll put all your names in as attendees tonight. But like anything else you're working on, please put it in the action tracker because I know y'all are working super hard. And then I look at like engagement scores and I'm like, this is wildly inaccurate data. Somebody please fix this. And it's largely like people just forgetting to log in. So just put in the action tracker. That's my spiel. Please do that. It helps us get more money to help you, which is really important. Great. Anything else from the last month since our last strategy call that folks want to recap before we jump into the main discussion? Or questions about any of that? All right. So I'm gonna play a snippet from the CCL monthly call, which was last Saturday, I think. And you just let me know if you're not hearing audio for any reason. Can you tell us the main message of your book and why it's so important for people to hear that message today?
Great. Well, the main message of the book is transformational advocacy. And I make the distinction between transactional, sign the petition, transaction complete, and the kind of work that CCL does, which is transformational advocacy, uh, where you're trained, encouraged, and then succeed at doing things as an advocate you never thought you could do, like meet with your member of Congress and bring them on board to your issue, or have a letter to the editor published on something you care about. And so when you do that, when you do things you think you can't do, you see yourself in a new light. You see yourself as a community leader. And why that message is important now, I'm going to just read one of the questions. I was interviewed last month on 1A at NPR, and this was the second question that Todd Zwillich asked. And this is why this is so important. He said, I'm going to read it. He said, the passive nature of our politics now, you can feel beat down by it. I mean, this is my career and I feel beat down by it. It's much more of an effort for me. I don't participate the same way others do because I'm a political journalist, but I do have to pay attention. It's a grind. It's a grind, Sam. I mean, you know that. What am I feeling? What's the way out of that? I'm not an activist, but you know what I'm saying. That's why the message is so important for people to hear today.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good reminder, as I shared those numbers right at the top about how young folks especially are feeling about our democracies. That feeling is really widespread. It's not just young people. Many of us are feeling frustrated, and that's why we exist, to enable those breakthroughs in personal power, as you explained, Sam. Now, there's an idea mentioned a few times in your book, which is about the fear people have of making big asks. And I think this is a really big part of how we enable those breakthroughs. But can you talk about what it means to give volunteers a big ask and why it's so important?
Well, let me talk about briefly what is exacerbated by that. So, for example, there was a study last year by the independent sector that found that 31% of nonprofits surveyed were doing advocacy or lobbying in the last 5 years. That's less than half than 20 years ago when they did only 31%, but it gets worse. The Congressional Management Foundation asked advocacy experts, professionals, what their main form of advocacy was. And they said 79% said an online email letter was their main form of advocacy, but only 3% of congressional staff said that made a big difference. So we're mostly not getting advocacy from nonprofits. And so many of the ones who do want these online letters kind of thing, you just sign here and put your zip code in. And only 3% of congressional staff says that makes a big difference. And so that all happens because most nonprofits and most nonprofit staff are afraid of making big asks of volunteers. So, they're standing in front of 20 people to start maybe a chapter, and they say, well, if I ask for too much, no one will say yes. So they make this little tiny puny ask, and then people do these sort of puny things and nothing big changes. So, I know that Ellie's working with several cohorts on relaunching and starting new chapters. And, they're making asks like commit to being on this monthly webinar. I know other groups that start with a 4-part new group training. That's a big ask. If people show up and get the training they need, it makes a difference.
Absolutely. You have a really great story about a big ask that. All right, I'm gonna pause it there because the conversation goes on for another like 15 minutes. Definitely worth watching if you are curious about like why CCL operates in the way that we do. But I thought it was a good opportunity for like us as a group to talk about like what does transformational advocacy look like on a college campus? Because obviously CCL has our approach to doing that. But I'm sure all of you are like adapting your own outreach in different ways. So I'm curious if anybody on the call has made a big ask of the volunteers you've worked with, like of your chapter members or of other people you've connected with through CCL. And like, what did you learn from that experience? Or if you just have like a different reaction in general to Sam's comments there.
I guess I'll interrupt the awkward silence. Um, uh, I think that what really stood out to me was him saying that only 3% of congressional staff say that like the emails and stuff make a big difference, because I think typically when I've been tabling for CCL, we've been like, fill out this form so you can like send an email to your congressperson. And that's also what I did with like my sister. I got her to like send an email to like, was it Nancy Pelosi? Like, yeah, probably. But it's kind of disillusioning for to also hear him talk about um how useless that is. And I don't think I've done a whole lot of like the more impactful stuff that he might say CCL does.
And I feel called out. That's literally what this link is. It's the online email thing.
Well, I had a similar thought, Emmett, I mean, one of the main ideas of the CFD movement is to get people engaged like that. But I think the CFD movement takes it a step further because we're doing it's like the idea of the movement is to get people to write Congress, but also to join in the movement and continue the mass marketing effect. So I think, and that's something that's been a key missing piece for carbon pricing. So I think we take it a step further, but I had that initial thought too.
Gabby, are there any like big asks or anything like that that you've experienced? Or like I think even some chapters, like their big ask is like asking somebody to become a vice president of their chapter. Like that in and of itself is a pretty big thing we ask volunteers to do. So have you experienced any of those yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Always at every meeting, we always have an action item like towards the beginning, and so that's always an ask of our own members, like write Congress this or like sign this or da da da, or call your representative or find your representative was one of the first ones this year. But then we've also made asks of like other organizations on campus. Like we've like collaborated with the Sierra Club on campus, and we collaborated with like this like the local bands like to get them to do a climate concert for us and like things like that. So we've made big asks of like our own members and of like other campus people, which has been pretty cool.
Have any of those experiences like surprised you? I think that's one thing that when our volunteers start making big asks, they often express like the initial part of feeling really nervous. The next segment of that monthly call is a really specific example of like making a big ask and how it will go for you. And I feel like there's this kind of like trajectory where you start off feeling kind of nervous that you're asking somebody to do that much, and then like are just amazed that they like rose to the challenge. Have you had any like surprises like that as you've reached out either in your own chapter or reaching out to those other organizations on campus?
Yeah, for sure. Like, when our own members are very like willing, which is something we're always like, oh, like, was it okay if you do that? And then they're always like, oh yeah, sure. So they're like very into it, which is awesome. And then other orgs have also, once you can get a hold of like other organizations, then it usually like always goes well. And like people are very eager to do collaborative events and like big asks that we ask of them. Yeah, it's really just getting a hold of people.
What are some other, not just for Gabby, but for everybody, what are some big asks that like are going through your head that you would make somebody? It reminds me of like Emily, you asked a question on a CFD call about like what would you do if you weren't afraid? Like what big ask would you make if you weren't afraid?
Well, one ask that we made kind of recently that I thought was awesome. This was a couple of weeks ago when we were deciding if like when people would take footage for social media, and then and then like one of the like Emmett, you had volunteered for a certain week, and then you sent a video in the social media channel, and I was in, and you don't have social media, and and so I felt so appreciative, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that actually we coordinated on that, and then and it happened. So that was a time I think I've felt I have tendencies towards feeling hesitancies of making big asks. I think throughout the movement, I have like I have made a lot of big asks, and just asks in general. And sometimes the big asks don't get fulfilled, and it I don't know, it's hard because then there's it not only affects the progress of the work, but it also can affect the relationship between the person that you make the big ask with. And it doesn't, and I think that's just a learning lesson about like knowing, I don't know, but that's the challenge, right? Knowing when you can actually make a big ask with someone. Because but yeah, I think yeah, early on in the movement we had a tendency to make big asks really soon, but now it's more figuring out where the where the trust is, and kind of, and I think that just makes a lot of sense for, but at the same time maybe that goes against what the video says about you'd be surprised about what people are willing and capable of doing.
I feel like the biggest ask you make of somebody is just to be like a CCL member. Um, because I think for the vast majority of people that will be, or at least people our age, will be like sitting in meetings with people who are like 40 years older than you. And I feel like that's always like an awkward space. And then to also have to like learn about like carbon taxes through like 2 hour lectures, I think it's a pretty rough experience, but maybe people will surprise me by by joining CCL.
You
A
might need
really
to
big,
make that ask before you make them sit through a 2 hour lecture. I think that'll turn off pretty much anybody.
a really big ask would be to ask people to go to a lobby day in Washington. But that really needs to be done.
Yeah, that's really the big story. The story that I mentioned that Sam goes into next is the story of how our Mountain West regional coordinator, who's a staff person at CCL, um, first got involved with CCL. And it was literally that was the big ask that he got. And like it takes a good deal of privilege to be able to say yes to that. Like we need to, yeah, it was Bill Barron. But literally he was looking up carbon pricing. He was like pulling a Stanley, doing some econ research, and like came across Citizens Climate Lobby and was like, what's this? And he like signed up or like sent an interest form or something. And literally the next day, the founder of CCL called him and was like, hey, come with us to DC next month. He's like, what? And he did it. And like he's been like just an amazing carbon pricing advocate ever since then. Like there's like a whole documentary coming out about him pretty soon. Because he like not only got involved with CCL, but like he decided to run in Utah for a Senate seat. And he was a single issue candidate. Like he only ran on carbon pricing. So like he knew like he was never going to actually win that seat, but he just wanted to stimulate more conversation about carbon pricing, and that was the only way to do it. And he like regularly bikes across Utah with like a carbon pricing shirt on and a CCL. Like he has a full like CCL bike uniform. Like he goes hard. like that big ask really paid off, and I think like most people would be terrified to make that ask of somebody. Bill is the new CFD icon. I don't know. I feel like it'd be really hard to replace John.
Like
That had to be
imagine,
additional.
imagine if we could get like Bill Barrett and John Gage branded merch. I think that'd be awesome.
Noelle, I'm curious, like hearing all of this conversation, is there a big ask that's on your mind?
Well, like you said, at this point, just asking people to be part of the chapter. I mean, I obviously, like I mentioned, I want to focus on underclassmen, but I was talking to my roommate today, my best friend, and hearing that she was interested, and then she reached out to her sister, who reached out to some of her friends. I remembered, oh, my friends can be a part of this too, as long as there's no conflict of interest, which was not. But yeah, I mean that, and then I mean, I wanted to ask you about the what was it called? The film or the podcast they have the
The
three
week.
times a week.
Mm-hmm. The
Um,
week. Yeah.
I wanted to ask if that's something you would recommend doing like in a campus space or at the apartment, because in either case, I think just having people come out and watch that and get to know each other, and just even if there's not necessarily like if they don't feel there's an incentive, that it's more just to educate themselves, I think that's a big ask where they don't see as much of the reward, but they're learning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think I'll take a first stab at this and then definitely invite anybody else's thoughts. My mind goes to safety like almost immediately. Anytime a campus leader is like, I'm gonna do something on like at my apartment. I'm like, please God, do not publicize your address. Like find some way to filter out the randos. I don't know. That's that's where my brain goes, and that's why like I tend to steer people towards like hold events in public spaces. But I will say also like CCL has a very long history of um like holding things in people's homes. So that I think that is kind of up to you. I think what it depends on is like how publicly available you're going to make your address.
Right.
Yeah, that would be my first thought. But I think definitely like making it fun. Like pitching this as like a movie night, get together with a bunch of people. Like turning it into a social event as opposed to like a learning event really makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if folks have any other thoughts. I feel like I see you, Mitch, post like photos in front of houses, but I don't really know like I don't know enough of the backstory there. So maybe Gabby, you can illuminate us on like where y'all host your events.
Oh, like bonfires and
Yeah, I
stuff?
think bonfires
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen it like on a random street, which is totally fine. I imagine you can't
Yeah,
really do a
that's
bonfire
like
on
in front
campus.
of our old president's house. It's like right down the street from campus. Yeah, so we do
That's
like
cool.
little parties and stuff. We just had a social at my house this past Friday. We did a game night and it was super fun.
Nice. Is there anything that you do like for safety, or am I just like too stranger averse?
I don't know, not really.
So Noelle, do what you like.
Okay. I mean, I won't be here much longer anyway, so I
That's a
don't
good
mind having people over.
that's a good point. It's like, well, if you want to like stalk me, you really
Yeah, you
only
only
got
got a
this
few
address
months.
until like April or May.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What these leggings are just wild. What? Is that just an option on Redbubble? Like you upload a design and they can turn it into leggings? Or like did you specifically say like I want this to be a legging?
Yeah, we just toggled on the option for leggings.
Oh my God, that's so funny. These are like perfect. This is perfect athletic gear.
This kind of reminds me, I finally got to meet with like Eliza on Saturday.
Oh yay,
Eliza, who's like
finally.
a bit like a potential CCL chapter leader, student leader at Wellesley College. For everyone else who doesn't know. But I think one of the action items that I mentioned was like if I got like CFD like if I got like stickers and like merch, like would you guys like wear it and like put it on like your water bottles and stuff? I think that's an action item, I guess. No, I think it's like pretty small, but I think for some people it's a pretty big thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's some of the nuance that Sam gets into more in his book is like pitching an ask at the right level. Like you have to be really good at reading people, I think, when you're doing real advocacy work because like some people that just asking them to put a sticker on a water bottle is a big ask. I'm going to be like completely transparent. That is the biggest ask you could make of me, and I do not have a single CCL sticker on any water bottle. It took me literally years to put a sticker on a bottle because I was just like, what if I lose this bottle? What if I want to put a different sticker on here? Then I'm stuck. Like I agonize over little details like that. But if you tell me to like go to DC and lobby with you, I'm gonna be like, bet. Like it's very weird. So the point being, like everyone's at different levels. So trying to like figure out how to read people is like the biggest secret sauce, I think, for doing transformational advocacy well. And I do think also like to the point, Emmett, that you made of like we ask people to write an email to Congress. Like, shouldn't we be doing more? Like, isn't that sort of what CCL does? I think like the Emily, you're totally right that like you do ask people to go beyond that, and CCL kind of does the same too. Like when you send an email to Congress through CCL, there's a little button where you subscribe, or you can say I don't want to subscribe, but most people don't realize that they have to like change their preference on that button. So then they get subscribed, and then they hear from a chapter volunteer who's like, why don't you come to a chapter meeting? And so like we're ramping people up and making bigger and bigger asks as they go. Like it's not meant to stay at just the email. And the idea is like we start them with an email so that they feel like their members of Congress are real people and they're going to get an email back from their member of Congress. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, they wrote me back. And then they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely come to your chapter meeting. Like that was super empowering. I want to do more of that. And then over time, we work them up to like, now you're going to like actually go meet your member of Congress face to face. So I think it's more of like a ladder than like an immediate. I think most people are not a Bill Barron. I love them, but I don't think that's gonna always work for everybody. Plus, it requires like resources to get there. I don't know if people still want to like stay on this topic and keep talking about big ask, we definitely can. I have literally no agenda for the rest of this other than just an open forum where people could share like any recent wins you've experienced, anything else you're stuck on. So like Noelle, I know you had like a lot of questions about organizing on campus. If there is anything else that you'd like to kind of put out to the whole group, this is just totally open space. But I think it was really instructive to have that conversation about big asks, and hopefully it inspires you all to make some more of them.
Yeah, I mean, all of this was really helpful, and like all the things you mentioned, and like prior to this call as well. Um, I mean, as of right now, again, I have like a few steps, a few concrete steps I'm going to take this week. and they'll probably be reaching out about like the CFD, just the different provisions there. And then I will get back to you about the movie that you mentioned. But other than that, yeah, I mean, just right now, just trying to get 4 underclassmen, and then we'll go from there.
I believe in you, Noel. Also, I feel like UIUC is a pretty, like, that's a big campus. You should be able to
Yeah,
get
it
4
is.
people.
I think the big thing too for me will be really just distinguishing CCL from our other sustainability organizations, just making sure we have a really unique mission, which I think is the case. A lot of the other ones are a bit more campus-based, whereas this is a bit more holistic. Again, focused on federal legislation. So there's definitely opportunity there. And I think a lot of people would be interested. It's more just me kind of getting past my fear, to be frank, at this point, and making those big asks, because it does feel like asking people favors sometimes, but I've learned that's okay.
There's like a whole segment in Sam's book about overcoming fear.
Yeah.
I think it's actually one of like, he has like these 18 commandments to transformational advocacy, and one of them is all about overcoming fear.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We're all still there to varying degrees.
In that webinar, the recording is like, he obviously shares the title of the book, right? Or do you know off the top of your head what it's called?
Yeah, it's called Reclaiming Our Democracy.
Okay.
By Sam Daly Harris. I can put an Amazon link in the chat.
Okay, awesome.
And then I'm gonna stop like being a shameless promoter for the book, but it was actually genuinely really good. I did actually have to read it before the interview, and I did cover to cover and like took notes because I'm a nerd. So it was good.
Yeah, I just found it. Thank you.
Speaking of books, big win today.
Yeah,
Woo! They made it! Oh my gosh.
I have
Thank
my
God. I was getting a little nervous. Gabby, I know I sent some to Elizabeth also. Did they make it to you too?
I don't think so.
That's frustrating. Did they literally just come in today, Stanley? Okay.
And I now have a piece of Stephanie's handwriting for everybody to see. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? I'm gonna hold on to this. It's gonna be worth so much money in like 20 years.
I should have like fully autographed it. I'll start doing that from now on. I feel like that is like the most humble brag thing you can do. Like, I'm gonna autograph this instead of handwriting my name out, because you can make some money off of it.
Use an AI program to analyze the handwriting sample, and then you can generate anything in Stephanie's handwriting.
Good news is I don't do a lot of stuff handwritten anymore. So I feel like it would set up a lot of red flags if you sent somebody a handwritten note impersonating me, because they'd be like, I've literally only heard from this chick over email. Like, I have no idea what her handwriting looks like.
Use it to fake autographs.
I mean, as long as I get a cut, like if you don't use it for nefarious reasons and you give me a kickback, I might be okay with it.
I think this should be the icebreaker question for next time. What would be the one item that you own that you would get autographed by Stephanie?
I feel so touched that y'all would like want something autographed by me. I feel like a very certain, a very specific level of fame that one can achieve in CCL. And like that's totally a thing. I feel like there's a lot of my coworkers that I'm like, I would totally get something autographed by you. What else? What else are folks experiencing on campus, struggling with, thriving with? a slow month. Which is wild because I feel like the CFD chat is like popping off because there's so many changes happening. Emily, do you want to share about any of the stuff that's going on in that world, or do you like want to wait until all that's like more fully baked?
I'm sure I can share some stuff. One of the main things is that we're transitioning our communication channel to a new Slack workspace. So we're gonna be like, and that's a huge infrastructure piece for us. So I'll link it in the chat too. It's and we're just there's just a bunch of stuff like we've been moving our emails or our drive. We're gonna probably start hosting CFD specific calls. And yeah, there's just a lot of change that's gonna happen and a lot of figuring things out. But it's really exciting. And I think the like it'll probably that's probably how it the most optimal functioning for both heat and CFD.
All right, well, if folks don't have other stuff to share, we can definitely end the call a little bit early and give people some more time for celebrating slash observing President's Day. It feels weird to say celebrating it. But I did want to take a group picture, obviously, of our crew that decided to not take the day off. So yeah, if you want to be on camera for this, fix your hair, do what you gotta do. All right, everybody ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So I did have a few announcements slash, in a way, asks, I guess. If you have any, I think all of you are on community or not on community, on Slack already. So I think we're covered on that front. But I was sharing earlier, we have a bunch of CFD movement stickers and gift cards still to give out. So if you are interested in getting more involved in that, the whole point of this was to incentivize more campus leaders to get involved this semester in CFD. So please request them. I literally have 950 stickers staring me in the face next to me every day. So please take them off my hands and use them.
Am I allowed to request stickers even though I already have some?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, put in the form. I just need the form filled out so that I can track where they're going. But yeah.
The John Gage stickers are epic. Like they have like printing on the back.
Yeah, they have extra info on the back
Oh,
as
that's
well as
cool.
but the problem is they're printed on like staple sticker sheets, so they're not as durable
Mm.
because they're kind
Yeah.
of like a papery material that's supposed to absorb ink.
John Gage and I were thinking about going in and buying like 10,000 plus stickers or something, just like really massive bulk that it's like high quality, waterproof, and then also double-sided with info on the back. So that might be coming up too. But we don't know how soon that'll come up.
What are the Redbubble stickers like? Like, what's the texture of them? Are they sturdy?
Yeah, I think they're really sturdy.
I could just buy like a lot of those.
It might be expensive to buy them straight off of Redbubble. We have the designs available if you wanna, because you can probably buy a lot more doing bulk from a site.
Yeah.
Really, really what I want is like this identical sticker with the info on the back as well, but like made out of kind of a shiny vinyl material that stands up to abuse better.
I wonder, I
Right.
didn't even look into whether that was possible with the people I ordered the stickers from, but that was way cheaper than going off of Redbubble. But also was like I ordered them in bulk. So instead of paying like $3 for a sticker, I paid $160 for 1,000 of them. So it's worth it. And it's worth it to go in for a lot more. The other, my big ask is, there's actually two of these. One of them, if you're in the recruiting phase, the big ask is to bring the week to your campus. These people have been like so nice and super supportive, and we really want to see this take off among CCL chapters. So like if you bring the week to your campus, we're also gonna like write a CCL blog post about like your experience and about like the impact, stuff like that. So like it is a good opportunity also to get some publicity around the work that you're doing, because we want to try to like encourage as many people as possible to use this as a tool for reaching out to people who maybe like are not very aware about what's going on with climate change, or who just like need a little nudge to actually take the step of taking action. So that's my big ask, is please bring this to your campus. I think it's especially valuable for groups that are starting out, because it'll help you identify the people who might be good leaders. But we always need new leaders. So that's, if you're interested in that, just Slack me or email me and let me know that you want to do it. And my smaller ask is to come to our next election training, which is actually going to be Ellie Sparks and John Sabin, are going to do that training, and they're going to be talking about two of the tools that we use already, but in the more in the context of like talking about climate for the elections. So they're going to talk about the story of self and help you craft your own like story of why you are involved in climate action. Sorry, Stanley, I faked you out. Not that John. John is the Great Lakes Regional Coordinator. And John's going to be talking about motivational interviewing. John Sabin is so cool. He's my bestie. I love him. We have coffee dates on Zoom, and it's very sweet. So please come to that training. I haven't put it on community yet because today was a holiday, so we just got the dates finalized on Friday. But it'll be on February 28th, which is a Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So at the time that there would be an info session running, Ellie has been kind enough to ditch the info session, leave it in the very capable hands of somebody else, and come talk to us instead about crafting our story itself. So please come to that too. And I think those are all of the updates I have. Does anybody else have any like big or small asks you'd like to make of this group? Like supporting any projects you're working on, supporting a social media post that you put out into the world that you want to see take off. Like, what can we do to support each other in the month ahead? Oh, just so independent. Apparently, Emmett can support Stanley by going skiing. It sounds like maybe in the leggings. I don't know how quickly the leggings would arrive, but I think the leggings might be a part of it.
Nervous
Also,
laughter.
I feel like Philip's design on leggings would also be really epic, but it would not read as a side. But it would like be cool. I can't find them on Redbubble. That's super interesting though. I didn't even know that was an option. So thank you for teaching us all something. I'm gonna make more CCL leggings. All right. Well, I guess.
Wait, I have one question.
Yeah.
Is there also a CCL Redbubble separate from the
There
CFD
is
one?
not a Redbubble. There is a CCL Zazzle store.
Okay.
Yeah. I can get you the link to that. It is. There's some good stuff on it,
I
but
have
not
already found
that
it.
fun. There you go. See, speedy. If you literally just Google CCL Zazzle, it comes right up. But I don't think it's as like flexible as Redbubble, in that like there's a limited number of designs, there's a limited like number of things you can put it on. Like I don't think you can just opt to put a design on socks. which also PSA Phillips design on socks looks kind of epic. Like I would totally wear those socks.
Just by Phillips Design, you mean the square CFD thing?
No, the his most recent design that's on the Redbubble now.
I don't know which one
The
that
like
is.
doodly one. The one that he drew.
Oh, okay, that one. Oh, I
Yeah.
see it now.
I was on call with him, I think, when he was doodling that. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. It looks really cool. All right. Well, I guess that concludes our February campus leader call, but it was great to see you all. And yeah, we'll have our next higher ed call on March 4th, and the next campus leader call should be March 18th. So make sure to keep that in your calendar. And we'll see you there.
Bye, thank you.
Nice meeting you.
See ya.